Give us a clap in 3, 2, 1. We're back. It's been a while, Stevie.
That it has. Worth it, though.
What are you sipping on?
Canada Dry. I can't think of a more appropriate beverage for just who I am as a person.
What, you got the plain?
The plain, yeah. They got like hint of lime, like plain, please. Canada Dry brand.
Marcel got the lemon lime. You got the plain. I
You got
gassed
the-
myself up by getting the LaCroix coconut.
Coconut, though. That's the move you're going to go with?
Yeah, I mean, I love a little coconut. It's like a pina colada, a watered down pina colada.
I guess I'm not a pina colada guy, so I'm at all times trying to actively avoid the taste of coconut. But just me.
The 4th of July is right around the corner, so I feel like I should be in pure Budweiser mode. I do it honestly, guzzing so many cannons next week.
You're big on this guzz now.
I just
Tell me,
think,
what's guzz short for?
guzzle. So people have been living off the LFG hashtag, like let's effing go, let's fucking go. Is PG-13. People have been living off the let's fucking go, and I'm saying let's fucking guzz. Let's fucking guzz. You know what I mean? Like, that's the new thing. Let's fucking guzzle.
Let's just guzz those coconut LaCroix.
Exactly.
2018.
I think, for coconut LaCroix to lighten up your day is a good move. But yeah, man, I think we've been off for a while. We had I think we had two guests in a row, essentially.
2 guests in a row, yeah.
It's been a while since it's just been the three amigos.
Back in the new studio. Hope you guys like the new
studio.
the new aesthetic. We've been bouncing around a little
Same WeWork. No. Still WeWork, but
Still
just a different
WeWork.
WeWork, yeah. We switched up WeWorks on them. 'Cause that's how we do. We're mobile. We're not tied down to one location. What have you been up to, man? Give the people an update since the last episode. Anything going on worth sharing?
I mean, the summer months are upon us, so been getting out of the busy city on weekends. A little beach trip here or there.
Mm-hmm.
Have a nice one, a Lake George trip planned for next week, 4th of July.
Nice. Guzz cannons.
Guzz cannons, America's Budweisers.
America Budweisers. Nice. You got a haircut?
I
since
did
the
get
last
a
episode?
haircut. Yeah, I'm not sure that people pay that much attention, but
People?
but you know what? You didn't get a haircut.
I
That is
definitely did
noticeable.
not.
Yeah, if you just look throughout the generations of GRC episodes, that fro is getting puffier and puffier.
Well, you know what it is? Honestly, right around the time we first started GRC was like the last haircut I got. Something coincided where we started GRC right when I started to grow my hair out. And
Would you say those are related?
I think they are. Because, growing your hair out's a journey. Starting any artistic endeavor is a journey. Guzzing cannons, a journey. So, you got to stay on top of it. So this month's book, On the Road, Jack Kerouac. What is it? I pretend I've never read it. For the people who've never read it, what is Jack Kerouac's On the Road, Steve?
Jack Kerouac's On the Road. To me, I'd say it's a stream of consciousness of Jack Kerouac throwing his thoughts down of like I'd say it feels like a 5-year period of time, and about his years with Dean Moriarty is the character, but basically this like crazy, self-absorbed maniac of a guy who's like also just super charismatic and everyone kind of has to love him.
Mm-hmm.
But they're just bouncing around the country, just free spirits in their younger years, and just kind of getting into all kinds of trouble. The classic sex, drugs, and maybe not quite rock and roll yet. A little early for that, but
so yeah, it takes place in. It was released in 1955, but it takes place in the late 40s.
Late 40s, yeah. He doesn't do a great job of keeping track of time for you, like taking you throughout the journey. But I think 47 is like the first date when they kick off, and then there's referencing to it being a couple years since then.
So to me, the 1940s was like the Stone Ages, like so old school. But I guess not. Like, I thought people barely had the Model T in 1940, but they're crossing America in vehicles, so I don't know.
Yeah, going fast too. Yeah, that's a whole part of this book. I mean, it's kind of like grandparents' age, and like I don't know. At least I always thought of like things being so proper back then, and like maybe they kind of felt it. But I mean, when we see the things Kerouac, or I should say Sal Paradise, right? That's the main character's name, who is pretty thinly veiled metaphor for Kerouac himself. But I mean, the things they're getting into and like the things they're doing, I'm like, yeah, no, that's That's way worse than the shit I thought my grandpa was doing.
Yeah, a lot of heroin, a lot of drugs, a lot of like just benders, and he really takes every day like one day at a time. He's never like too worried about the things that are going on in the long term like effects of it. He's just out there on the road living day by day.
Yeah. I thought it was weird. I mean, basically the book is like 4 or 5 just back and forth trips between like New York and San Fran.
Right.
Lots of Denver. I mean, but basically it's New York, Denver,
major
San
cities.
Francisco.
Yeah, like all the major cities that now you would consider major cities, places where you would definitely guzz cannons. You definitely guzz cannons in New York. Definitely would guzz cannons in Denver. Most definitely would guzz cannons in San Francisco. He hit all those in the 40s.
Yeah. Now, I just have to throw it out there. Maybe I'm coming in here early with this one, but I'm seeing some parallels here between this and our first GRC book, Barbarian Days of Surfing
Say less.
Life.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's a memoir in ways. It's what both those books to me do is talk about just like time and life, like day by day, and then you put it all together, and that's your life.
Yeah. What do you think about so it's told in like a very, like I said before, stream of consciousness. Like he's just pouring out thoughts, and chapters range anywhere from like 2 pages to 20 pages kind of thing. And sometimes he's given like blow by blow of what's going on while he's riding in the back of a car. And then like other times he's getting super philosophical about what he's feeling. What was your take on kind of that style?
I like, it's back and forth. He goes action, 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 do, get drunk, go to Mexico, get wasted, do whatever, do all this crazy stuff, and then look back at that and reflect on that. I feel like that's kind of my life in some ways, insofar as you dig into something, you go, go on a bender for 2 weeks, or you go really hard at work, and then you like take a breath. You have to let the truth settle.
Eventually you surface, right?
Exactly.
Like,
you come up for air.
Yeah.
Like, wow. So yeah, I think it's very true to life in terms of I resonated with it from like, yeah, sometimes you don't have time to think. You don't have time to sit back and take everything in and feel everything. You just got to do everything. And then there's moments when you have to let the truth settle. So I like that style. I thought it was a nice balance. That was one of the first things you mentioned to me when we were at a party last weekend. You said, his style of going back and forth between action and, what would the word be, reflection? Yeah. What did you think of it?
It was distracting to me a little bit. But as the book progressed, I got more into it because I started to recognize that surfacing that you were just talking about. And also how the trips on the surface seem similar. His, escapades across the country, I'll call them. But he's growing as a person, and you start to realize that. And he gets excited about different things in different ways, and he starts to look at the people in his life in different ways.
For sure.
Especially Dean, once again, who I mentioned is this kind of maniac of a person. But when he's in his first trips, Dean's the man. He loves him, and then he gets a little bit more mature, and he's like, Dean's kind of an asshole.
Everyone has a Dean. Yeah, that one friend who in college was going out 5-6 nights a week, hooking up, like just living life, somehow still killing it in class. And I feel like, and even you go back to high school, you have the Dean, the kid who always is killing it, and for some reason never pans out for that guy. It always stops at some point.
Yep, catches up. But so this is interesting. We were talking about Sal Paradise, the main character, is supposed to be Kerouac himself, but so Dean Moriarty in this character, and I guess actually all of the characters in this book to a certain extent are supposed to be based off of real life people. Jack Kerouac's friends, which is cool. I'm sure that happens a lot, except that Kerouac's friends are like some notable people. So Carlo Marx, who's kind of in this story.
Who is Carlo Marx?
In real life, you mean?
In real life. Sorry, I didn't mean it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking Groucho Marx.
Well, so that's
what I thought of.
That's confusing. So he mentions Groucho Marx a lot just because, like, using like metaphors, like, he was running all over the place like Groucho Marx. But Carlo Marx, his buddy in the story, in real life is Allen Ginsberg, the famous poet.
Okay.
And Dean Moriarty, the probably the second biggest character, is Neil Cassidy, who I've known about my whole life.
Cowboy?
Not a cowboy.
Oh, what? I thought he was a cowboy.
I don't think so.
Who's Neil Cassidy?
Neil Cassidy. So he, largely I think is famous for being friends with Jack Kerouac and kind of being the guy in this book. I know about him though. My dad was a huge Deadhead growing up. Surprise, surprise. And
Definitely Guz Cannons.
Yeah. And Neil Cassidy was in with the Grateful Dead crew. There's a song called Cassidy, spelled differently. It's about one of their friends had a kid named Cassidy, the same like day or year or whatever that Neil Cassidy died, and it's all about birth and death and stuff like that. But so I'd always kind of heard about Neil Cassidy and how he was friends with that crew, and then I started reading this and I was like, oh, okay, this is about this guy. And then you keep reading, you're like, all right, this guy was nuts.
Crazy. And
this is like 20 years, this is in the 40s. The Dead didn't really come around until like 60s, 70s.
Wow. So he's still going at that point. In the 60s, he's still kicking.
Somehow kicking it.
So that's interesting. So Jack Kerouac basically wrote this story and put pseudonyms.
So in the original script, apparently, like he didn't even put fake names.
Oh, he just like shouted.
Yeah, they were afraid. Like I think some of these guys are his buddies, but there's also like they're worried about like libel suits and stuff like that. So his publishers made him like change the names.
Yeah, because he talks about some pretty greasy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, and there's things that
in Mexico.
Yeah, once you're deep in it, you don't really realize. But even just like Dean, like, what's good with Dean being into like 13-year-old girls all the time? Like, it gets questioned.
Well, I'm reading that and I'm like, was that the Times? Yeah. Was that how it went down? Like, because they're really talking about like hooking up with some young chicks.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I get that you're getting married by 20 then.
Right.
But 13 is still, it's feeling questionable to me, kind of whenever.
For sure. I think in perpetuity for the history of time, it's sketchy.
Yeah, I mean, when you're like, like ancient Egypt, okay, maybe I'll let it pass. But like when you're like in your Cadillac limousine driving 110 and you arrive in Chicago and go to a bar, like that's close enough to modern times. You probably shouldn't be hooking up with 13-year-olds.
Yeah, that's for sure. Put that on the back burner.
Tisk, Dean.
What are you gonna do, man? It's the 40s. Times are different.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I thought it was. I think with this is one of those books. And this happens with, movies or books or songs all right. So you like life imitates art imitates life. But I think even more so, art imitates art. Like people create a book because they read another book that really inspired them. And I think On the Road is like the OG book.
Yeah, like that's the ground zero.
The ground zero for a lot of American literature over the past 5-10 decades.
I could not agree more. And I think it's inspired. I feel like it's inspired more than just books. So, I mean, this makes sense. We were just talking about Barbarian Days, and we also had a similar conversation. We talked about Barbarian Days, about Into the Wild, the book, really the character. I mean, it was played by Emil Hirsch. We'd still love to have you on the show.
Hit us up anytime at GuzzBoys on Instagram.
Make that account now. So, yeah, I mean, even it's inspired like people. I mean, I know that's a famous one because John Krakauer wrote a book about it and it became a movie, but I'm sure it inspired, even to a certain extent, William Finnegan himself to go do that. I mean, William Finnegan's big inspiration was William Burroughs, who is another one of Jack Kerouac's best friends, who hung out with him, Neil Cassidy, Allen Ginsberg.
Oh, really?
All these dudes just went to college together.
So weird.
Yeah.
It's so weird how that works out. Like, there's always that ground zero. Or, like, you look at, like, actors or something, and, like, these 5 actors went to the same acting school in New York together, and it's, like, every big actor ever. Yeah. It's, like, there's such a small group of people that have such a big influence on the art.
Yeah, and I'll take this a level deeper. A couple episodes ago, you dropped a quote from Just Kids, the Patti Smith book. Yeah, that was the one.
Crazy.
I won't get into that one. Anyway.
Oh man,
That's when you threw our buddy Mark for a loop there.
I thought I hit Mark with I thought I dosed him with MDMA after. Like he didn't know how to react to that.
Yeah, but so that book, Just Kids by Patti Smith, she talks about, there's a lot of that same, like, wait, this whole crew lived in New York City the whole time? There's overlap. She was friends with Allen Ginsberg as well. So you tie that whole crew in, and now you've just gotten everywhere from William Burroughs to Jimi Hendrix, all, like, mutual friends.
Crazy.
Talk about, like, 7 degrees of separation.
Like, 40 years from now, is like Marcel going to be president, and you're going to be, like, CEO of a company, and I'm just going to be a janitor, and I'm going to be like, oh, man, my friends blew up, and I'm the one that got left out.
Yeah, but you're still drinking those LaCroix
True.
coconuts.
As long as I have the LaCroix coconuts on ice, I'm good. Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean.
All right. What was your favorite back and forth? I mean, so he does all the trips and stuff like that. And you get different aspects. He does a good job of his first time going out west. It's all about, like, hitching, how you get out there and like the process of going. And like maybe the second time it feels a little bit more about like the people you're with, and like, I mean, maybe because he's with friends that time, right? And the people you're with, how you travel. And then like the third time, it's way more about the places he saw and like how they stopped. Do you have thoughts on which one was your favorite one?
His first trip out west really sticks in my mind just because it was all so new and it wasn't tainted by his previous experiences. So I'm going to go with the first trip.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, he's also going out there in like the roughest fashion. I mean, he's like straight up hitchhiking on the side of the road.
He basically goes from New York to Denver to Frisco, as he calls it, hitchhiking. Yeah. Which can you hitchhike today? 2018?
I think it's illegal.
It's illegal.
I mean, like, and
because
forget it being legal. Like, I'm not sure it's practical. Like,
I'll throw on some booty shorts, let the cheeks fly, and I will get picked up.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not saying that once I was in the vehicle, said services would be provided, but just to get in the vehicle,
you got to start somewhere.
Throw on a pair of those Sophie shorts. Let the people know.
Yeah. So anyway, moving on. So that first trip, hitching, he ends up in the back of like a flatbed truck with these two like salt of the earth, blonde hair, like Iowa farm boys driving.
Eating lots of potatoes.
There was some weird shit that went on in the back of that truck. They're just with a bunch of like randos and they're just driving like 90 miles an hour down the road, and he meets like a couple hobos and the guy's watching after another one. Hands down, I think my favorite part of the book is a guy, I think his name is Slim. Don't hear much about him, but you don't really know the time. He might become a big character, but he's trying to piss off the back of the truck, and they kind of knock on the window to let the guys driving like see, and they start swerving all over the place, and he falls back and he's pissing all over himself, and he's soaked in urine. And then like 10 minutes later, they pull over the side of the road and they go out to a bar, and this guy's like out at a bar pulling chicks just covered in urine.
Oh my God. Pretty like it's like a story you think you'd hear on text from last night or something. Crazy. Yeah. And that's another thing with this book is it is so. America in 1949 was a different world, period. But a lot of the stories, it's everyday shit. It's like stuff that you could totally see you and your friends getting into. Like that story, for example. It's like if I told you that story that happened to someone from school, you'd be like, "Oh, that's crazy." So it's like it's like everything changed, but everything stays the same in some ways.
Yeah.
For you, what was? I saw a lot of truth in this book. Just
like honesty.
Yeah, honesty and things that resonate. Again, like things you wrote in 1949 that me as a young man in 2018 could say, I've experienced that, or I felt that, or you put pen to paper on something I haven't felt before, or so he did what William Finnegan did, was articulate something I felt that I never could articulate. Anything like that pop into your mind? Did you have that same experience? Did you see any major quotes or
well,
sections?
I know we talked about one. I hope I'm not stealing your thunder here, but I mean, on the lust for women throughout it, right? I mean,
heavy
also
lust.
These dudes are willing to get married like on the spot,
dude. So literally, he meets a girl, and 2 nights later, he's like so nonchalant. Yeah, at that point, I was ready to marry her and go move to San Francisco, and we'd figure it out. We'd eat deli sandwiches and panhandle for money. Like they're so nonchalant with these major life moves.
Yeah,
I mean, we need to be more
like
that.
Throughout the course of the book, Dean's married.
Do we care too much?
3 times. I don't know. I think like divorce maybe is a little bit more expensive now or something. But yeah. So anyway, quotes. I actually had.
Pull her up.
Got one tucked away here. Talking about a girl walking away, an attractive young lady. And he says, "A pain stabbed my heart as it did every time I saw a girl I loved who was going the opposite direction in this too big world." That could have been quoted by me 4 times on the subway ride here.
True. That is a huge thing in New York, especially when I was single. That happened a lot. You would see, a beautiful woman on the street, and it's so fleeting because you're so close. Like literally you're standing next to them, but you're so far emotionally and mentally.
I think he does a good job of kind of painting the picture of like see a beautiful girl and like see the whole life with her forever flash before his eyes pretty quick. but it is kind of just a flash a lot of the times, right? He meets Terry, I think her name is, out in Mexico, and they're like,
that was nice. I like that.
They're madly in love, and they're like eating grapes together, and then like, and all of them, all the friends too. The dude Ed Dunkel meets a girl, like marries her. They start driving. She's got money, so they start driving to the East Coast, and like she runs out of money, and they're like, all right, see ya, and literally leaves her in a hotel room for like a month. And
that's it.
Ditches.
That, and you brought up a good point. Like the book meanders throughout this guy's adventures, and like it'll just go so deep and specific into one aspect of the journey. Like, let's call it 10 or 15 pages of him writing about being with Terry, and it's nice. Like he goes into the specifics of like how he must have taken. If this is based on his real life, he must have been journaling a lot because it's so specific, or he fabricated it. But either way, he goes into like the specifics of his love with Terry, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So
it's nice.
Kind of on that point. So legend has it that Kerouac wrote this whole book in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, maybe.
Really?
And apparently, so there's people who disbelieve that, but what is true is that the original he had his custom rolls of paper made for his typewriter, so he could write just continuously. Because I guess he's one of like the fastest typers. Like he's at like 100 words a minute typing.
Crazy.
Which is crazy. So all of Kerouac's books are like not on pieces of paper; they're on giant like 150-foot scrolls of paper.
So he,
which kind of makes sense.
Ostensibly goes like stream of consciousness. Just
well,
like
which to my point, like stream of consciousness, kind of makes sense if you're just like pounding it out.
Yeah, I like that style. It's like he totally disregards the editor in his head and just throws it on the paper.
Yeah, I mean, and according to some stories, totally disregards like the editor that he works for too.
Yeah, just like no, this is going in. No, that whole 30-page tirade around this one small thing, it's going in the book.
Yeah,
I like it though. I think the book to me is very. It has an air of like genuine, and he doesn't use. Occasionally, he gets fancy with the language, but for the most part, the language is very like basic. And I like that. I feel like it's genuine. He's not trying to impress anyone. He's not trying to get crazy and use all these hyperbole and metaphor and similes. He just keeps it simple, and I like that.
Yeah, it feels timeless to me too, in the way
sure.
that like Catcher in the Rye does. My metric for that has always been like if you can read a book. It's 2018. This book was written in 1955-ish. If you can read a book from that time and at no point wonder like, where was his cell phone and stuff like that, when that kind of just like fades from the picture and you're just in the story, and it's not like in old English or anything like that. It's just really natural, I think.
Because the human connection and the human journey is going to be real.
Yeah, and it's timeless across generation, right?
For sure. That's why a book like The Alchemist or something, there's truth. I think there honestly is objective truth in the human experience, and he taps into some of that.
Yeah. So this is not really specific to the book, but it comes up a lot in it. So they bounce around from city to city, and they're able to find each other. I just don't get it. I mean, maybe it's because I grew up in the cell phone generation.
Houseway.
But like, how do they find each other? It's like almost like they're like dropping pins and stuff. But like, you just go and like, how are they mailing things to each other? They're literally moving around every month. Like, just luck? Or?
I think you open up the bracket of time in one place. For example, I'm texting you and Marcel, hey guys, let's meet at the WeWork between 6 and 7 tonight. I think that's like super narrow. We're like snipers with where and when we meet. I think as you go further back in time, it gets wider and wider, and it would be less meet me at the WeWork at 7. It would be meet me in New York on this day, or meet me in New York during this 1 month period, or I'm going to be at this house address for at least 3 months. Come find me.
Yeah, and I guess people probably aren't. If you think the number of transactional things you do in a day, right? Like you could go to a different restaurant for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I think times probably you're right. We're different around then. You know what I mean? Like you spent whole days just sitting at your house, right? Yeah. Maybe reading books.
Time was a different thing.
Yeah.
And this book inspired me to want to write letters to those I love, because I think there's something like you send a text and it's so militant. I feel like it's so small and so tiny, and like the fact that when you write a letter you have to put all your thoughts on paper and it's finite and it's done, you have to then send it, there's no follow-up. To me, like, that just feels cool. Yes. I want to write letters based on this book is what I'm saying.
So interesting you should say, I had to write a check for my grandma recently. She grabs no.
How many zeros?
0 zeros. She picked something up for me, whatever. And my dad was like, yeah, just send me the money. And I was like, Venmo, Chase Quick Pay, like what she got? He's like, checking account. And then so I'm embarrassed to say, I had to go to the bank and get checks.
For sure,
I haven't
of
used
course.
checks. So I wrote a check, and I'm going to put it in an envelope, and I just don't want to put the check right in the envelope. So I figured I'd like wrap it in a piece of paper. Then I had this blank piece of paper, and I was like, damn, I should probably write something on it. And then I wrote a full-page letter to my grandma, and it was weird, man. I mean, not in a bad way, but it was the first time I'd like gotten in touch with, and I wasn't writing a super emotional letter. It was kind of like, hey, grandma, how are you? But you have to get in touch with your emotions in a very different way. Yeah. It was probably also the most words I'd written with my hand in a while. Fair. But did it, and I was like, oh, that felt kind of nice. And I mailed it to my grandma, and she called me, a couple days later when she got it, and she's like, this is the most meaningful thing I've gotten in years, and she comes from that letter writing generation, and she's like lost that because no one writes, you get older and older, you have less and less friends around. But she said it's the first letter she's received in years, and like I thought about it, if it opened up these emotions, me writing it, think about the emotions that opened up her getting it. I mean, especially too.
Probably love that from her grandson.
Yeah, I mean, like I could do literally anything, and she's proud of it.
Did you enjoy writing it?
I did, and I've written like one or two back and forth with her since then because I saw the amount of joy she gets out of it. But it's kind of like a fun, like, I mean, when was the last time you wrote? I think we talked about this actually with Barbarian Days too. But when was the last time you wrote 2 pages by hand?
Yeah, Not frequently, but I journal.
Yeah, well, so and I know, journal. And you're also into. I know you're into we'll call it the line between poetry and rap, kind of. Yeah. So that's
definitely spit bars. First of all, I wouldn't say it's a line. I only drop 16.
Yeah,
so
yeah, there's a line. And I know which side of it I'm on.
And I most definitely am on the drop hot 16s off top, no written type side of it. But anyways, continue.
I'm at a loss now. You got me on that one.
No, but I do enjoy journaling. I think you cannot replace putting your hand on a pen and engaging in the physical act of writing and reflecting on your day.
There's no backspace key too. That's really what hit it for me.
There's no what?
There's no backspace button. There's no. Like, you have
what do you mean?
Like when you're writing by hand. You have to put way more thought into it.
For sure.
If you're writing a letter, that is. I mean, or start from scratch kind of thing.
Yeah, it's just it's more of an engrossing experience to write on paper. Mm-hmm. So I try and do